Good morning. This is Ms. Billerbeck, and we're going to talk about 7.1 angles formed by parallel lines and transversals. To begin with, we need to understand just the basics. So, you know how when you're skateboarding and someone says, do a 180, and that's a half turn. And then when they say, do a 360, that's a full turn. So what we're going to look at is the sum of adjacent angles on a straight line. So we have a straight line right here is 180. So if this is angle A and this is angle B, A plus B is 180. And then the sum of all angles at a point is 360. So if I have a point here and I have angle A, angle B, angle C, and angle D, and I'm doing a pirouette in ballet or something, I'm doing A plus B plus C plus D equals 360. And if it's too much, it's not a very good pirouette. So we want to do exactly 360. All right, well, let's look at some angle pair relationships. All right, so if we have, these are properties of parallel line sheets, so you're all going to get one of these. So first we're going to start with corresponding angles. So if I have parallel lines denoted by the little double lines here, and a transversal cuts across, so this is a transversal, corresponding angles look like this. So we have one angle here and one angle here. Okay, when I used to live in surfing territory, I used to say it's like corresponding sandbars. So if you have a current coming through like this and it hits the pier, it hits the pillars of the pier and bounces around like that, then comes back, hits another pier, bounces around like that. And that's why Oceanside's pier keeps taking all the sand away from Carlsbad, because they have that massive pier and we had to bring in sand for our beaches. Okay, so corresponding sandbars is another way to remember corresponding sandbars. Okay, so that happens to be one of the harder names to remember, so I created that. So corresponding angles, corresponding sandbars. Okay, so are they congruent or supplementary? They are congruent, and if you remember, this sign means congruent. Whoops, let me spell that correctly with U-E-N-T. Okay, alternate interior angles. So if I have parallel lines here cut by a transversal, they are on the interior, so inside, so that means in this area, and they alternate around this transversal. So we have this and this. Okay, and they are also congruent. Then we have alternate exterior angles. So if you're starting to get the words down, alternate means they go on either side of the transversal, and exterior means they're outside of the two parallel lines. So we're looking at this and this, and they are also congruent. Then we're looking at vertical angles. Now, vertical angles are you don't need parallel lines and you don't need transversals. You just need two intersecting lines. So if we look at that, no matter what, the angles that are opposite each other are always congruent. Okay, so that would be this angle is opposite this angle, and there's a lot of vertical angles on this, and these are congruent. And you don't need parallel lines. And this is the abbreviation for parallel right here. So don't need parallel lines. Then we have linear pairs. So a linear pair is two angles that make a straight line. So again, we don't need, for a linear pair, we don't need parallel lines. Okay, and a linear pair is just created this and this, create a linear pair. We just need intersecting lines for that. And these actually are not congruent. They add to 180 degrees, so they are supplementary. So we've got a new word there, supplementary angles. Okay, consecutive interior angles. Okay, so interior tells us they're inside. Consecutive tells us they're adjacent. Your book says same side interior angles because some books just don't teach you consecutive. Consecutive means the same side. So we have this angle and this angle. And these are also, they add to 180 degrees. And they're supplementary angles. These angles you do need parallel lines for, because they have to be interior of the parallel lines. All right, so now you have the cheat sheet, which I will scan and give you a copy of this fabulous sheet. Now let's look at some examples. All right, so if I have this example here, it says find the measures of X, Y, and Z. So let's look at how we might find that. So there's so many ways we could find this. Okay, 70 is an exterior, is a corresponding angle to X. 70 is an alternate interior angle to Y. And 70 is a consecutive interior angle to Z. So if we look at corresponding angles, well, corresponding angles were congruent. So that means X equals 70 degrees. Alternate interior angles right here and here, alternate interior angles, they're congruent. So that means Y equals 70 degrees. Then if we look at Z, well, Z is a consecutive interior angle like this. So consecutive interior or same side interior angle, and they add to 180. So Z would be 180 minus 70. So Z is going to be 110 degrees. That was easy. Now with the cheat sheet, if you have just one angle, you can find them all. Okay, so if we have P is right next to this. We have a linear pair, so they would add to 180. So P is going to be 180 minus 115, which gives us, let's see, that's 65. Okay. So 65 degrees. Q is a vertical angle to that, so vertical angles are congruent, so that's 115. R, well, R is a linear pair with P, and it's also vertical with, well, R is a linear pair with 115. It is also vertical with P, so P was 65, so R is 65. Okay, then we look at, we've got Q, so we're looking at S. S is right here. It's a consecutive interior angle to R, so that means it's supplementary. Well, we know that the supplementary angle is 65, is just 115. And then we have T. T is an alternate interior angle to R. So that's the same, they're congruent. So R was 65, so that makes that 65. Okay, so we double check it this time. Oops, that's a T. Let's double check, make sure we're not getting all confused. Usually I write right on here. So R and T should be the same. S and Q should be the same. So S and Q are both 115. Now we're going to U. U is a vertical angle to S, so U is 115 degrees, and V is a vertical angle to T, so V is 65 degrees. One angle tells us everything. When we have parallel lines, this means parallel, cut by a transversal. Isn't that amazing? All right. Now we can get into some really cool geometric shapes and still find the angles. Okay, so it says find W, X, Y, Z, T. Okay, so we're given this, and we have two parallel lines. So this is parallel, and then these are also parallel, but we need to have a different designation. So I'm going to do 3 parallels just to make sure we know it's a different set of parallels. All right, so from this, I know that Z is a corresponding angle, so I already know what Z is. Z is 72. And then X is a corresponding angle to Z. So that means X is 72 degrees. All right, W is also a corresponding angle to not only X, but to 72 degrees. So that's 72 degrees. So we've got all our 72 degrees. Now we have consecutive interior angles right here. So T is going to be 180 minus 72 degrees, which gives us 108 degrees. Okay, so we have T. That means that Y plus 23 degrees should equal T, which is 108 degrees. So if we want to find what Y is, we subtract 23 degrees from that, and we get Y equals, and that's 585 degrees. All right, so see how simple that is once we understand the geometry? All right, so now it says find X. So we want to find this one right here. Well, what we can do is there's actually, if this is a parallel, this is a parallel, we can do a little cheat right here. We can draw a little line if we know where our ruler is, but we don't. So let's see. Find another straight edge. Okay, so we draw a little line through that point. That's parallel. Okay, so we might not always have that line, but we can imagine that it's there. All right. All right, so what that means is if I have two parallel lines, it means that I know what this angle is here. Okay, and I also know what this angle is here. Okay, so let's mark that A and B. So when I know A and B, okay, so I have A is just an alternate interior angle to 20. So A equals 20 degrees. So that gives me part of X. B is alternate interior angle to 55 degrees. And I also have this section of x on this side, not including a. So that would be the mystery, we'll call it the mystery angle. Y is going to be 180 degrees minus 55 degrees. Okay, so that gives us 5 degrees to make 60, and then there's 120 degrees left to get to 180. So that's how I do it really fast. So I add 5 degrees to that, get it to be 60, and then I can do 180 minus 60 fast. So y is 120 degrees. So that means x is y plus a equals 125 plus 20 degrees equals 145 degrees. All right, so we found what x is from figuring out the parts of x. All right, so that's it for this section of 7.1. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.